Hey, how's it going, guys? Today I wanted to talk about a keyboard that I recently picked up, and the reason being that I picked this particular keyboard is that it's readily available and it's in a layout that I've been wanting to try for a while now. If you've watched the Nizplum Atom video, you may have an idea of what that layout is, and not that you have to wait much longer because that keyboard is the Tokyo60. And I picked this keyboard off drop instead of their Amazon store like an idiot because at least in Canada, I had to pay about $20 in additional fees through delivery, which really sucked. And I'm sure through Amazon, all of that's already like pre-calculated, like estimated or included in the price or whatnot. So yeah, that was just annoying. But anyways, I picked up the Tokyo60 quite recently, and I'll just go over my own configuration right now. So in terms of my own configuration here, this keyboard is in the Coyote colorway, which is kind of like a dark brown. If you can just see here, of course, light is shining directly on it, so it might look a little bit different there than in person, but I really like this color. It's a bit unique because you don't really see this color in a lot of keyboards. However, I personally would have liked to see an E-white version because I think it comes only in black, gunmetal, silver, and this color here, Coyote. And I don't like a lot of the anodized metal kind of finishes, mainly in the silver and like gunmetal. Black's fine, but it's kind of basic, and if you want something a bit more interesting, it's going to be difficult to get here unless if you go with this color, in my opinion. Apart from that, I opted not to get the acrylic diffuser because I'm not a person who uses backlighting at all. It definitely looks cool, but it's not something that I thought I would use too much, so I just decided not to get it. If I did get it, I'd probably have RGB on here and there, but again, it's not something that I'm super interested in, so I decided not to get that. Apart from that, in this keyboard right now in its current configuration, I do have C3 stabs, and on those I'm using the pads as well as desk keys pads over top of that, just because I had some difficulty tuning the stabs here, and I just needed a little more cushion there, and overall now it sounds pretty good. For the switches, in this keyboard right now, I am using KTT Rose. In any like older clips that I may have in this video of it, I am using U for Bobas, which is a silent tactile, but the KTT Rose is a very affordable linear switch, which so far I'm enjoying, but I can tell that it's not really as nice as a JWK linear, at least in my opinion, just because the pitch of these switches is a little bit higher than some of the JWK switches that I've tried, which have a much more deeper, thockier sound. But overall, these are, in my opinion, I guess a very good competitor to Gateron Yellows, and it does come in different spring weights. The Rose switches come in 60 gram, whereas I think any of the like sea salt, lemon, grapefruit, peach, I believe those are all 40-ish grams. So you do have a bit of options there. And apart from that, the keycaps on here that I have right now are just HK Gaming's Milkshake clones. These are PBT cherry profile, but they are like this smoother PBT, which I personally really like. And in a lot of cheaper PBT sets, you don't get that. You end up getting kind of like a rough, I guess almost like sandpapery feel almost. Whereas this is very smooth and is like your fingers just glide across it and it just feels really nice. So I just want to go over quickly what Hhkb Layout is, because it can be difficult to, I guess, figure that out unless if you're already looking for it, and most Hhkb labeled keyboards are still labeled as a 60%, like in this case, a Tokyo60, but this doesn't have any like full 60% option. It only comes in the Hhkb layout as far as I know. So the main differences here is that you're missing the left and right control here, but you have control moved over up here where caps lock is, because frankly, I don't really use caps lock, and I think caps lock, at least from my experience, is more of a kind of like, hi, I'm angry, I'm yelling at you kind of thing in games and stuff, but I don't do that too much, so not really something that I'm needing. I'm sure it's used for other things as well, but not something that I've come across yet. Apart from that, your backspace or delete is where pipe is. Unfortunately, this keycap set does not come with, come on, focus. Does not come with a backspace where pipe is, or a 1U top row pipe key, which sucks, but that's fine. You do have a short shift and a function key here. In terms of the bottom row modifiers, I just map them to whatever I think I need. So I do play a handful of video games, so I ended up mapping this key over to Alt, which is nice to have. However, I believe on the other side, I have this as Control and this as, I think, Windows. I'm not entirely sure because I don't really use the modifiers on the right too much to begin with. But yeah, those are the main things that make Hhkb layout Hhkb. And the main thing that I wanted out of this is just having backspace where pipe is and having that split backspace up top, mainly because when I'm typing this, I can reach with my pinky pretty easily, but if it's up in the top corner, I end up having to shift my entire hand just to press it, just because my hands are pretty small, so I can't reach that with my pinky or anything. Well, I'm sure I could, but it would be a stretch. Like, it would be really uncomfortable. So that's why I wanted to try out this layout in particular. So just going over the build process here, just as a heads up, this keyboard is a top mount build with the plate integrated. So everything's kind of like going into the top of the case rather than being dropped in to the bottom of the case or the case in general. So that's just something to note. I hear different things about it being like feeling stiffer or feeling a little more softer, but as far as I can tell, it's a pretty stiff overall feel. But I don't really mind that because it's not something I've really paid attention to. I'm sure I would notice it more going back and forth between keyboards, but that's not something I really do. Like, I'll do it once in a while, but I do basically just have different keyboards for different use cases. So yeah, it's not something that I really mind too much. And in terms of the actual build, it was pretty seamless, I'd say. It's basically what you expect out of any hotswap keyboard. You are provided with some screw-in stabilizers, which I did not use. Again, I used C3 stabilizers. You just put those in, make sure it's all lubed up, drop the PCB in, and pop in your switches. And yeah, it's basically done. It's a very quick process. I've taken apart this keyboard about 4 or 5 times in the past week, just because I did want to do some additional tuning. Like, before, the spacebar sounded a lot worse than it does now. So, but hopefully that just me willing to do that is some kind of testament to how quick and easy this is to put together. One thing to note is that a lot of people say there's no space for foam in the back. I don't believe that, especially building it now. There actually is quite a bit of space in the back, mainly towards the top half, just because everything is kind of mounted in an angular manner. So at the top there's more space, where the bottom there's less space. So in the bottom I don't have any foam, but towards the top I actually have 3 layers of EVA foam in there comfortably. The only thing that I needed to be concerned about is the USB port, which is a USB-C, which is great, and the reset button, which is a little purple button underneath. Before, when I just had a full sheet in there, I did notice that my keyboard would just reset randomly, so I ended up having to make a cutout for that, and now everything's great. So I do want to do a quick typing test here. Just a heads up, there will be a portion where I am using U4Bobas and another portion where I'm using KTT Rose, just because I wanted something that felt as close to an actual Hhkb with Topper switches as possible. And I figured in terms of MX style switches, the U4Boba is probably my best bet. And just listen to the clip. So overall, I do think the U4Bobas got me pretty close, probably the closest I can get to an actual Hhkb feel in a keyboard. However, the spacebar, tuning the spacebar just doesn't seem very practical at the moment. I haven't band-aid modded any of the stabs, but the pad should do a good enough job with regards to that. I just don't like how the spacebar sounds. The spacebar is too loud. In person, it does sound very clacky and unpleasant, especially when you have the kind of subtle kind of tactile sound. It's hard to really say what that sounds like, but because it's not really a click, but you can hear that bump almost. But having that and then a sudden clack of the spacebar is not something that I want in a keyboard. I like having consistent sound throughout, and I'm not sure if that's because of the stab or the plate or the wire, but I have done what I can to dampen all that noise. Just the spacebar stabilizer here, I've lubed with dielectric instead of 205G0 just to increase the dampening characteristics there. And again, I have used both the C3 pad and the Deskies stabilizer pad. So I feel like I've done what I can. Of course, the wire has also been balanced to the best of my ability, but it's still very clacky. So that's why I opted to switch over to the KTT Rose. And switching to a normal switch, a non-silent switch, the keyboard's very pingy. Like everything that everyone has said about the keyboard being pingy is quite true. And honestly, I think this keyboard should come with plate foam. I think that's a very big oversight on Drop/Tokyo keyboards side, because this keyboard is very pingy, and from what I'm hearing from the designer, I believe he wanted it to be a bit of a more unique approach to the Hhkb, but with the sound characteristics, it's not for everyone. I don't mind it after some time, but I am still going to get a plate foam for this, and there will definitely be a sound test of that, just seeing how much of a difference that makes. But as is, it is quite pingy. If you do like the sound of mechanical keyboards, I don't think it'll be too big of a deal, but when I can hear this clearly through my headphones, and Discord transmits some of this keyboard sound too on a linear switch lubed with 205G0, you lost me a bit. But it might also be just that the KTT Rose is a bit of a higher pitched switch from what I'm used to. I have used things like mainly JWK linears or some form of JWK switch, and those are quite a bit deeper sounding than these. But overall, the sound profile of this isn't my favorite, but it's definitely like perfectly fine. And this keyboard is not the best example of this switch, so there's a few different sound tests of the KTT Rose, so you can definitely listen to those. But this overall experience is quite pingy just because of things like the integrated plate. It is top mount, so things, at least from what I understand, feel a bit more rigid. And overall, there's just a lot of things that will cause additional ping in this keyboard, so I feel like adding that plate foam is definitely something that most people will be interested in doing. But overall, I do really like this keyboard. I think the build process was very painless, very simple. The one problem that I had with my spacebar earlier which is quite a bit earlier, was just some rattling, was actually something to do with the keycap that I put on, which really frustrated me because I didn't realize how warped it was until I really looked for it. Because when it's sitting flat, the keycap was like this, and it was not fun. But yeah, overall, I think this keyboard is definitely a reasonable buy. There are definitely better purchases out there. So if I didn't get this keyboard, well, actually, let me rephrase that. I would rather get the tofu in the Hhkb layout rather than this. But the tofu in Hhkb layout specifically has been out of stock forever, at least from what I've seen. Checked on it every once in a while. I don't turn on the notify me when this is in stock thing because not really something I'm into. I don't really like getting those emails, but I'd rather get that than this. But this is readily available. This is something you can purchase without waiting at all. Of course, you do have to wait for shipping, but it's on Amazon if you're in Canada or the States, I believe. I'm not sure about anywhere else in the world. And yeah, you can return this if you don't like it anyways, if you do buy it off Amazon pretty easily. So that's the biggest, I guess, motivator to purchase this over something like a tofu, because in the Hhkb layout specifically, this is available, the tofu isn't. This also has the perks of being available through Amazon, which again comes with all the perks that come with any normal purchase off Amazon. Anyways, that all being said, I will say that this keyboard is going to live on my desk for some time, especially once I get the plate foam. Hopefully that does change the sound characteristic of this quite a bit. But overall, I am really enjoying this keyboard. It does feel quite good, and I've just been really enjoying using it for everyday tasks, gaming, work, whatever else. And now I have to edit this video on this keyboard, so that will hopefully go all well. So yeah, anyways, and this was a bit of a video that was kind of all over the place, but if you do have any questions about this keyboard or anything that I mentioned in this video, keycaps, stabilizers, switches, just leave a comment down below and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. And yeah, I think I've been pretty good about that, I think. And yeah, anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.